really what a lot of people focus on is what's happening in Texas. And so let's talk about that. Again, being a native Texan, you know we focused on that. We've been talking about it, lots to deal with. And so massive amounts of energy that we're seeing as well all across Texas with the turnout. Kendall Scudder is the chair of the Texas Democratic Party. Kendall, I'm glad to have you on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's talk about this. Look, it's a massive state, 254 counties. So much attention is obviously focused on the Big Five. Of those Big Five, Dallas County, Harris County, Bexar, Travis, and then Tarrant County, the last large red county. But it's 249 others. And so it's really important for a Democratic candidate to actually do well in those counties, because typically that's where Republicans have beaten Democrats in Texas, by running the margins up in those smaller but very important counties.
That's absolutely correct. And a challenge that the Texas Democratic Party has faced in the past is that they've just been getting out organized. I mean, if you look at the state of Texas, only 36% of our precinct chairs are full. And if you look at the counties, about 20% of them are sitting vacant with no county chair. That's nobody's fault but our own. And I think that the party needs to take a serious look in the mirror and make sure that they remind themselves you can't just lock yourself in a room in Austin and buy your way out of a problem. This is about organizing people from the ground up. And that's what we've been working to do. When you have high turnout, like we've seen in this election, it gives us more data to work from, because in Texas, you don't register as a Democrat or a Republican when you register to vote. And so we only have that information based on which primaries you vote in. So big wave primaries like this one give us a lot of data to work with, where we can continue to build in every corner of this state, 254 county strategy, leaving nobody behind.
On that particular point, when you say a 254 county strategy, listen, I'm born and raised there. My parents born and raised there. All my family is there. When you talk about people, when you talk about working elections, listen, you've got 2 million or so eligible unregistered Latinos. You've got the most black eligible voters of any state in the country. And when you look at the last election, more than 1 million African Americans who didn't vote. When Colin already ran against Ted Cruz, some 1.2 million. And so what I've always said is that when you look at the state, 60% minority, black, Latino, Asian American, Native American, yet 60% of people who vote in Texas are white. And so if Democrats are going to have any chance, they've got to have a 365-day, year-round effort to really get deep and register voters in the state. But not before I get them registered, touch them, talk to them, explain what they can do. Otherwise, Democrats are going to keep getting mollywopped. The last Democrat to win statewide in Texas was an African-American, Morris Overstreet, for the Court of Appeals. That was in 1994.
That's right. That's right. And here's the thing. A bunch of well-intended white liberals for a long time have been leading the charge in Texas, and that is just, frankly, not going to get us there if you aren't incorporating communities that are actually the majority of this state. And so if you're putting together a plan on how to turn people out in East Texas, it's not going to be a successful plan if you aren't going into black communities. If you are putting together a plan to turn out voters in West Texas, it's not going to be a successful plan unless you're going into Hispanic communities, right? And it feels as if the party has been kind of void of that strategy in the past. So what we have to do is empower people on the ground to be able to put these plans and programs together for us. We're going to have 12 coordinated campaign field offices around the state for the first time this year. We've already opened 5 of them. We've got more to go by June. We just launched a $30 million coordinated campaign with funds already secured, where we've already gotten 160 elected official partners around the state of Texas. We're changing the way we've operated in this state, because we can't keep operating like it's amateur hour. We've got to operate like we're a serious state if we don't have a long-term plan, not just for this election, but looking down the line to 2032. If you aren't looking that far ahead, then you're failing this country and you're failing to meet a moment. Because after 2032, if North Carolina or Texas isn't in play for the presidency, Democrats don't get elected president.
Yeah, and that's understanding the map, because, again, if you look at the 2030 census expected, blue states will lose by 11 electoral college votes. And so Democrats are going to then have to win Arizona and Nevada, or flip Georgia and North Carolina to be able to compete. Let's talk about money. In 2008, highly contested election, lots of energy. A lot of people really thought Texas was Democrats were going to pay a lot of attention. Then Senator Hillary Clinton, Senator Barack Obama really generated lots of attention. But what ends up happening? Okay, then all of a sudden Obama wins, and then Texas simply became money bags. He would fly into the state, just like Joe Biden would do. They would come in, raise money, and then leave. And I kept saying, listen, you got to be able to fund this stuff. And so, what are you saying to big money interests in Dallas County, in Harris County, in Bexar, in Travis, in Tarrant, in West Texas, in South Texas, that the only way this gets done if they are funding, organizing, and mobilizing around the clock?
That's right. So I'm a farm kid from East Texas. And so, maybe it's just the mentality that I was raised with, but I'm sick and tired of the party sitting around and waiting for national partners to come in and save us. At some point, we just have to roll up our sleeves and get it done. And, what I'm telling those partners are, if you want to help nationally, that's fine, but we need to take care of the home front here. And this isn't going to happen overnight. You're not going to wake up in November and suddenly the Democrats have won every single office in Texas. It is going to take cycle over cycle of building this. I think we have an opportunity for some wins this year. I do. If I'm in Vegas, am I putting my money on it? It's probably not probable, but I do think it's possible. But we build now so that we can have success later. If we are constantly funneling the resources we have into TV, that's not building long-term gains. That's not organizing a working class army in every corner of this state. That's not showing up into communities that have felt disenfranchised and ignored by this party for so long and showing them that we are showing up for them. That is how you have to change the strategy on its head in order to find success, in my opinion.
Last question I have before I go to the panel with their questions. And look, you've got lots of online stuff going back and forth between Tallarico supporters and Crockett supporters. You've got all of these questions being raised about, well, is she electable? Is he better reaching out across the aisle? You're going to have to reconcile these sides. It's going to be a lot of hurt feelings after tomorrow night once we find out who wins. Are you prepared to do that? Because, again, listen, you got a lot of folks who are African American who are pissed off with stuff a lot of white progressives are saying. You've got Latinos who are upset with comments that Congresswoman Crockett has made. And so are you understanding the role that you're going to have to play to say, hey, I got to keep this thing together with the massive turnout in the primaries? You're going to need that and more in November.
Post the primary, it's crucial for us to be unifiers and to try to bring everyone together and focus on the things that we all have in common. Because absolutely, people in Texas are not used to, Democrats in Texas are not used to having contested primaries. And so this is a new feeling for folks. But I'll remind you, you remember this, Roland, back in 1990, the last really raucous primary we had in this state was Treasurer Ann Richards, Governor Mark White, and Attorney General Jim Maddox. They all ran against each other, calling each other cokeheads and fraudsters, and it was really vitriolic, and it took a lot of uniting, but I'll remind you, the Democrats won in November in that election. And so these primaries get people excited and involved, but it's our obligation to make sure that the people who may not find themselves successful or might fall short on election day, they have to understand they're still welcome at the fold. There's always a seat at the table for everyone who's willing to respect everybody at the table here at the Texas Democratic Party. And we have to put in the work to earn those people's support and shouldn't just expect that they're going to come back to us. It's about not taking any voter for granted and showing up and expecting to have to earn it.
All right, let's go to a question for the panel. Thelma, you're there in Dallas. You get to ask the first one.
Good evening. One of my questions is centered around the importance of maintaining or retaining Democrats in the party who are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So one thing that I've noticed, there's a lot of distrust that is within the Democratic Party because I know from my lens, I'm seeing a lot of pay to play that is coming from the apex, or when our party openly accepts individuals who switch from Republican to come and fuse and disrupt the Democratic candidates who are legitimate Democrats. And we sit on the sidelines and allow this to happen. I see it in Dallas County, in the district attorney's race with Cruzo being a former Republican, now a Democrat. And I'm seeing it with Tallarico being funded by APAC in order to come in and manipulate an election in order for them to come in and create the next Chuck Schumer. What are you all doing to regain that trust so that what we are seeing would not continue to happen, especially in the dangerous times we are in and the political games that are being played?
That question, and you're speaking my language here. I wouldn't have run for leader of the party last year. I was the first new chair that the party's had in 13 years, got elected last year. I wouldn't have run if I was happy. I ran because I was one of those people who was pretty pissed off at the way that the party had carried itself. I'm from the progressive wing of the party, and I feel it's unacceptable for a party to negotiate the way to negotiate away the things that are important to our base and to constantly try to grovel towards the center. One thing Republicans understand that Democrats don't is that your base are the ones who brung you, and they're the ones that you need to stand for and fight for. So what I tell candidates all across the state, they don't have to agree with me. I don't get to tell them what to do, but I will say I don't want to see a single one of them going around the state talking about preserving Social Security. They should be talking about expanding Social Security. They shouldn't be talking about making sure people get to see a doctor when they're sick. People should be able to see a doctor before they get sick. We are supposed to be a party that is unapologetically on the side of working class people, that will take on whatever billionaire, whatever banker, whatever bootlicking bastard we have to make sure the little guy gets his seat at the table. And we have not been that as a party. We have been a party defending institutions because we were patriotic Americans who loved it and didn't want to see Trump tear it apart. But we have to recognize real quick that there's a reason that 1.1 million Democrats who voted in 2020 stayed home in 24. It was because they felt like we negotiated them away and negotiated away the things that were important to them. So the strategy that I take is I need to make sure that our base understands that when you are a member of the Texas Democratic Party, we value our base and we're going to hold our Democrats accountable to make sure they're doing the right thing. That's why I fought so hard to make sure we were pursuing the quorum break last summer, where we were able to end up getting Prop 50 passed in California and get these districts redrawn, because it's essential for us not to just grovel and do everything we can to get crumbs. People elected us to throw down and fight. And that's the role that I think the party has. And that's the space we should occupy.
All right, folks, I've got about 3 minutes left. I got 2 questions to ask. Eugene, Craig, your questions.
Gene Craig, I'm one of those former
Eugene, there you go.
Republican.
There you go.
Do you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Okay. I guess my question is this: as a Republican that crossed over for Kamala, and so goes Kamala, so go I. My question is this: are y'all prepared to go to hell and going to go to a deeper hell when it comes to Ken Paxton, if he's so the nominee on the other side? One of the things that's frustrated me about Democrats, especially being a Republican that came up in the 2010 era up until now and whatnot, is that when it comes to this is a zero-sum game. And I need y'all to go to complete hell and then beyond. Drag him from El Paso all the way up to the borders of Texas and back to make sure your candidates go over the finish line. So my question is, as a chairman, are you willing to go to complete hell when it comes to Paxton? Because there's more than enough there to really the carpet bomb and turn out folk and really, I mean, this should be a cakewalk getting your people over the finish line with Paxton on top of the ticket.
Ken Paxton's a certified garbage person. Yeah, Ken Paxton's a certified garbage person. And if we as a party aren't willing to drag him and his terrible behavior, things like cheating on his wife with a married mother of 7, if you aren't willing to stand up on a stage and to throw punches at the attorney general, then you don't deserve to be a leader in our party. I know that sometimes that can be scary to folks, but the reality is people are counting on us to meet this moment. And people like Ken Paxton are not worthy of public office.
Okay.
Congo, your question.
So many people talk about the Democrats being energized because of Tallarico and Crockett, but I wonder if you also are seeing a level of energy surrounded all of the shenanigans last year with all of the gerrymandering as well that was attempted. Is that getting people even more energized?
I think that Crockett and Tallarico both, of course, have a huge play into things. But I'll remind you that just a month ago, without Tallarico or Crockett on a ballot, we just overperformed the Republicans by 31 points in a district SD9 in Tarrant County and won it. There's palpable energy on the ground here in Texas. So regardless of who the nominee is, they're both phenomenal candidates. And if we can unite this party and focus on the things that we have in common, I think that we're going to be in store for some really good things in November, not just because it's owed to us, but because people have seen what Republicans have delivered. But we have to offer something that is different. We can't just sit and say those guys are bad. We have to stand firmly on the side of working class people and unapologetically fight to make sure that it doesn't matter what your zip code is, you should be able to go and see a doctor. Doesn't matter what your zip code is, you should have a high quality public school. And whenever we start fighting for people unapologetically like that, in addition to how bad the Republicans are, I think that energy is going to carry us to November.
Tamron? All right, sorry, folks. I'm here at, first of all, Kendall, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I'm here at Susan Taylor's National Cares Mentoring Gala. So we're sort of monitoring two things at one time. I appreciate it. We look forward to tomorrow. I already voted. I flew into Dallas Friday before last and voted. And so we can't wait to see what happens tomorrow night. We'll be monitoring, the nation's going to be monitoring what happens in Texas. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank y'all. Appreciate you having me.